Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be with you today. I get to bring a fabulous global mobility professional to you today. We're gonna have a wonderful conversation. She's coming to us from across the pond, so I always love to get a different perspective going there. Let's see here. All right, Janet, and then we're having a little problem on LinkedIn Live, so let's remove that and then redo that. All right, Janet. Anyway, so we're having a little technical difficulty, but that's cool. We are going to proceed. The show must go on. Let's see. We also have some sponsorship stuff going on as well. This is Hunger Action Month, which means that we are raising money to support Move for Hunger. We've raised over $26,000 this month alone between the telethons that I've been doing with our good friend Tanya Maritini and our Corporate Action Network. And we're also selling t-shirts. These are Love and Relo limited edition t-shirts provided by Move for Hunger. We're super excited about it. I'm going to go ahead and get you a kind of a banner where you can go ahead and actually purchase these shirts. So you can go to moveforhunger.org/relo. $35 donation gets you a t-shirt. The t-shirts are so fire. Or you can go ahead and donate $100 and get a hoodie for the winter time, which is fantastic. So love the merch. Thank you so much to Move for Hunger for doing this. 100% of the money goes to the charity forever and ever. Amen. Anyway, so without further ado, let's go ahead and bring out our guest, Holly Maria Creed. Hey, Holly, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Ben. How are you?
I am fantastic right now. And Holly, you are the director and co-founder of Next Gen GM. That's fantastic. What is Next Gen GM?
So, Next Gen GM is a global mobility forum aimed at individuals with less than 15 years experience, which I set up about 2 years ago with my friend Natalie Chapman.
Awesome. So tell me, like, what does the organization do exactly? Like, so people, I've heard of Next Gen GM, but tell people what it actually does and how they can engage with it.
So, what we do is we host events, not so much at the moment, obviously, but webinars. We release articles and content written by global mobility professionals. And really, it's just there to help educate those who are just kind of starting their global mobility journey, or even if they're a bit more advanced in it, just to help them out, shall we say.
And what was the impetus to start that? Because I love that. I love that. That's a noble cause to help people when they're beginning their career, because I meet so many people who have found themselves in global mobility and don't necessarily have a background in it. They might be from a total rewards background or from a talent background or from an HR generalist background. What made you say, you know what, this is a need that we need to fill?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly why we did it and why we said less than 15 years, because I know so many people have kind of crossed over from recruitment to like global mobility, or as you've said, reward. So we just really wanted to give something that was kind of like a safe environment where they could come and kind of ask potentially silly questions with, shall we say, peers, versus some of the other events which are great, but maybe more for the leadership and the people who are a bit more senior in global mobility.
So when they ask these, is there like a private group somewhere that they can sign up for it? So if people are watching this right now and they don't have 15 years experience, and maybe there's nobody at their organization who understands what they do, right? Because I think we've all had that moment where we're telling people what we do and they're just eyes glazed over and like, what are you talking about? Where can these folks go to get involved in this community that you formed?
Literally just go to www.nextgengm.com and the contact us page, and it's got all our information there. So our Instagram, our LinkedIn, and our email address.
Awesome. Fantastic. We got people tuning in now. LinkedIn is online. Speak of the devil. LinkedIn is online. So let's go ahead and check in with everybody that's coming in right now to say, hey, if you're watching this right now, go ahead and hit that like button. Throw a little love out to Holly. Okay. Holly, where in the world are you right now?
I'm in London, Greenwich, precisely.
Nice. Coming to us from London. We usually have some Londoners on here, actually. Let's see here. Let's see who we've got checking in with us right now. We got Victoria McCullough, love Next Gen GM. Oh, awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Victoria, leave it in the comments. Let us know what your favorite part about Next Gen GM is and how you use it and how it's helped you. Love to hear some testimonials, right? Testimonials are great, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Let's see here. And you know what? I'm all about fishing for compliments too, okay? It's like, how do I look today? No, really, tell me in detail, please.
Oh, that's so un-British, Ben.
Yeah, hey, I'm American. That's why y'all left, all right? Anyway, Simon John's checking in. Hi, Ben, and the lovely Holly from the UK. There we go.
Hi, Simon.
Look at that. Henry Dussois. Hey, Ben. Hey, Maria. I was like, is that a nickname? Maria. Hello, all. Good to see you again.
Hi, Henry.
Fantastic. Let's see here. We got Fernando Donadon. Hello from Brazil. Got the Brazilians. Look at us. We're doing good. We got England, France, US, Brazil. We got four countries, 4 in a row here. Let's see. Sandra Clary, what a great concept, learning about Next Gen for the first time. So people are tuning in. This might be their first exposure to Next Gen GM. What do you want them to know about Next Gen GM?
That it's really for everyone, and even if you're not 100% sure, just have a look, come to a webinar and just see what we're about, because it may surprise you, because we kind of do things a little differently and we're a bit more chilled out sometimes. I think, like in February, when we could actually all meet face to face, we did global mobility escape rooms. Now, we didn't actually lock anyone in a room.
I feel like I work in a global mobility escape room. Okay, and I just haven't figured out the code yet. Okay. I feel like I'm like, is it in here? Where is it? Is it a riddle? What's going on? I don't know where it is. Oh my gosh.
But it was really fun, and people had to kind of answer questions about expat tax, accommodation, and just general global mobility. And the fastest time won a prize. So it was just really a good way of learning. And I'll be honest, I like learning when you kind of don't know you're learning. And I think that might just be me, where I'm not the best at just paying attention to someone talking at me.
I agree. I love the fact that you talk about, presenting the information in a more chilled out way, because I think that a lot of people create content, and especially learning, right? And they're like, okay, how do I teach this like it's a college class? And what did we all do during college? We all try to stay awake, right? I mean, like, it was the most boring thing. We're like, when do we leave here and go into the social activities, okay? And I feel like that a lot of times is also what conferences are like, right? Where we sit in these breakouts, we spend 20 minutes going over biographies, right? Everybody says, yeah, I agree with Sally, I agree with Susie, I agree with Steve. And then we leave 30 minutes later not having learned anything, not having engaged any part of our brain, right? Playing on our phone the whole time. But I love what you're talking about as far as making it different. What are some of the other things that you do at Next Gen GM? I'm fascinated by the idea of packaging, learning, and differently.
Yeah, and I think also we try and just kind of make it interactive, like our webinars that we've been doing. We even had bingo at one of them as well, just to kind of add that bit of fun element to it. I love bingo, so that was partly why. But it did add an element of fun to it. And equally, we use stuff like Mentimeter, as well, which kind of the different way of doing a poll. So you get like words on the screen and you can kind of actually write stuff. So instead of yes or no, it actually gives that bit more, shall we say, dynamic and a bit more interaction. You have to think, dare I say, versus going, yes, I've done this, or no, I haven't.
Right. I love that. Fantastic. Let's see here. So we got some comments coming in. So good to see you here, Sandra. Let's take a look here. Marion Van Kempen. Found you. Hi, Holly and Ben. It's good to see you, Marion. let's see here. Miriam goes on. Actually, she leaves a note here down here and says, she has a little comment. Holly gave me the chance to share my views on work pressure within the relocation global mobility space, and I've received so many reactions. That's fantastic.
It was awesome what she wrote. Like, we've been doing a coronavirus blog, and it's not, shall we say, about, oh my gosh, that consulate's closed, or oh my gosh, that person's stuck there. But really, it's about global mobility professionals' experiences during the coronavirus pandemic and what it's been like. And we've had people from Brazil to New Zealand. So it's really interesting to get all those different perspectives.
I'd love it, and I'm gonna piggyback off that. We're gonna go in that direction. And by the way, if you're watching this right now, hit that like button. Go ahead and give Holly a shout out. Also, leave a question, leave a prompt here. I'd love to hear Holly's thoughts on your questions. Okay, so go ahead and leave it in the comments, and we're gonna get to that. I promise we're gonna get to all of them. But you talked about the pandemic, right? I think it's hard to talk about global mobility without talking about it in the context of the pandemic, right? But we're not going to talk about, all the bad stuff. I want to look towards the future, okay? And I want to say, well, first, just give us a state of the union, like what's going on right now as far as, and I don't even know if that term makes sense in England or not, but give us, where are we today with global mobility programs? Okay, in the pandemic, and what do you see the future being like?
Well, we've actually had, I think, in maybe the last hour, an announcement. So something's gone on in the UK potentially because there was an address from our Prime Minister, but I'll leave that aside. But I think,
well, we love breaking news too, so maybe incorporate that in your remarks about the future. Oh, can somebody leave some breaking news in the comments, please, and we'll react to it as it breaks.
Yeah. But I think really what we're going to see is global mobility professionals having to look at their policy and their processes. When this all settles down, I think, let's be realistic here. I would be shocked if the business has the same budgets that they had, shall we say, in January, because we all keep talking about potential recessions and cost cutting with redundancies and everything like that. And it's going to hit global mobility. I would be really shocked if it didn't.
Mm-hmm. So now you're talking about processes and policies. Can you kind of give us some more specifics around that?
Yes, so I think in terms of policy, we're going to potentially see leaner policies. So things are being cut out, unfortunately. And equally for processes, expectation on getting that person there quicker, because the business loves to overpromise. And I reckon to win those contracts now, they're going to even more overpromise. So where you had potentially a 2-month lead time, it might now be a 6-week lead time. And I just think there's going to be a big doses of reality, because immigration is not going to go back to normal very quickly. So the consulates are not going to be able to do that 6 weeks turnaround. So it's interesting.
So this is interesting, and I think we have some breaking news here. Well, I don't know what the breaking is. I'm getting conflicting reports from Henry and Des McKell. Can we get some more? We need to further vet this. If you understand what the breaking news in the UK is, leave it in there right now. We're all over the map here. I need more points of reference here. I'm not quite a journalist. I don't have quite the journalistic integrity that others do, but I do still need to understand. I mean, it's not the star here. Okay, we need to do a little bit better. All right, let's see here. We got some more folks checking in here. Des McKell, Next Gen is doing a great job of supporting the global mobility leaders of tomorrow. Bravo, hashtag Next Gen. Awesome, nice. Des. Janaina, hello. Let's see, I was talking about Janaina before in the green room. I can't tell you, Janaina, what I was saying to Holly. But
it was terrible.
It was really, really awful stuff. No, just kidding. No, Janaina, I love Janaina. Hello, Holly and Ben. Love from Rio, Brazil. We're actually talking about moms being on the show, and so Janaina, I was saying how much I enjoyed your mom popping in. Holly's mom, if you're watching right now, please put a little shout out in the comments, okay? We appreciate it so much. Lynn Greenberg, so privileged. Holly, let me be a part of Next Gen GM. So Lynn Greenberg, Lynn, shout out to you. You've been doing
Amazing.
a fantastic job. I just saw your podcast released with oh gosh, I'm blanking on her name. She's fantastic as well, talking about networks. So what do you recall? What is some of the things that Lynn shared on Next Gen GM?
So Lynn's one of our technical advisors. So she's actually helping us do something which is a bit secret at the moment. So yeah, can't really say, which
Wow.
is shocking for me because I'm terrible at keeping secrets. But she's been helping, and it kind of really falls into what Pivot's about, which is kind of that employee experience, well-being, mental health, ensuring good employee satisfaction, really.
Okay. All right. We're getting some more details here. I'm sorry, Lynn. We got to cut away from you here. We got details. This is super important here. Apparently, the UK pubs will now close at 10 p.m. Okay. So I mean, talk about a culture shock right here. Jack, even from the U.S., is hearing the same thing from his contacts at Parliament and Downing Street. Boris Johnson warns of the second lockdown per COVID. Breaking news: pubs will close at 10 p.m. Max of 6 people together. Holly, fortunately, we do not have to end this conversation right now. But if a few more people joined, we would. Work from home versus the office, straight from Boris. Des has the red phone on his desk. He got it straight from Boris. This is interesting. I wonder where people are going to watch Love and Relo if the pubs kick them out at 10 o'clock tonight. So this is interesting. So what is the impact of potentially the pubs, and even probably more germane to the conversation, the office, work from home? What do you see the impact of that being?
Well, I like to think the pubs closing won't be that much of an impact, but
Speak for yourself.
this is British society and we do love the pubs, so probably quite a bad one. But I think really the working from home is going to be a big impact. There's been such a drive to get people back to the office, and certain companies have started that redeployment and getting that all sorted. I know my niece, for example, has been working really hard in her company to do that. So now if everyone's got to undo that, that's a lot of work.
So had people started going back into the office now? Because I know I've got family in New York City. They're still all remote. Here I am in the Midwest in the United States, in Detroit. Many people are remote, but a lot of people have come back into the office, or at least to some degree. Of course, movers, are essential as part of transportation. So we've been back in we actually never went home. Just some of us did. I took 3 months back at home. So did people, can you describe, just for people not in the UK, what was that like? How many people came back or went home, and then what percentage of people would you say are going to have to go back?
So really most people were working from home unless it was, shall we say, completely not doable that they were at home, shall we say. So we are talking very few options, but in terms of office workers. But now really there was shall we say, a real big push, and the government were really driving hard for this, shall we say, to redeploy people back in offices. So a lot of what was happening with companies, they were doing slow deployments, like 5, 10, 15, making sure they do that social distancing and stuff. So now if it's all work from home, that's all going to be undone.
And then, so now we look at that the near term predictions there. So now, what does that impact do you foresee on global mobility in a more long term perspective for the UK?
I'll be honest, I would be shocked if we see proper assignments until maybe next year. And when I say proper assignments, I mean ones that aren't do or die, because I think it's just a bit too hard at the moment, not just with the UK, but everywhere. Like, there's so many consulates closed. There's like having to quarantine, flights. There's so many, shall we say, dramas and issues that it makes you wonder, will people be bothered if it's not business critical?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. People are already making their plans right now. Lynn Greenberg asks, our resident UK expert, Simon Johns. How are you feeling about the pubs closing early? And people are already developing strategies for this. And Simon says, Lynn, I'm just going to go 1 hour earlier. Which I think just shows the flexibility of the British people to be able to respond to things like this. That says long-term remote working will undoubtedly impact the ability to nurture the future leaders of tomorrow. This is interesting. Holly, and we hadn't really talked about this, but I want to ask you. I was having this debate. Not a debate, but I mean, just this discussion last night with some relatives who are in town, actually from New York, who work in Manhattan, in New York City, and they're all remote, and the remote for the foreseeable future as well. And we're talking about, and they're young in their late 20s, and it's like, well, how are you, I'm not gonna lead you here. I'm gonna ask you, I guess, what is that going to impact? How's that going to impact the ability to nurture the future leaders of tomorrow?
Yeah, I think about this myself, and if I'm honest, if someone had put me remote away from my team when I was on my graduate scheme, I don't think I'd be where I am today, because there was a lot of mentoring from my peers in the year above, equally, shall we say, managers who would sit down and explain stuff with you. That's all going to go. And as great as Zoom and everything is, it's not the same as someone actually just sitting there with you and maybe just drawing something and showing you it, like kind of back to basics, or just giving you an example. I don't think remote working is actually going to work as well as we all think long term. And equally, I often say, if remote working is working so well, why, whenever I ring up my utility company, do they keep telling me because of COVID they're not operating properly?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think that we haven't fully adapted yet, and I don't know. The question is, will we ever fully adapt? But I think that there's tools also, and it was interesting. We had Chris Roberts on last week, and he talked about a tool called Mural, which
Love
is basically,
Mural.
which is like a virtual whiteboard. And he kind of gave me a demo after the fact. And we had about 5 people go download Mural, in the comments. And I was telling Chris he should get a commission for it. But we need to work on these collaborative tools, and we're live streaming now, which is interesting, and the Zoom and the screen shares that we've had for a long time. But I think we're getting our proficiency up with it. But I do also worry about the interpersonal coaching, mentorship. Those types of interactions often happen organically, just as people run into one another, or stay after a meeting to discuss a few things, whereas they'd have to be a lot more contrived and planned, where I say, hey, do you have 15 minutes on your calendar where I can throw a Zoom on there and kind of make you put on some proper clothes, and let's have a conversation about my future with the company. It's just kind of a formal process, and I wonder if it's going to happen with the same pace.
I've also seen some of my friends are a bit lonely because they're missing that interaction, because it's not just with your work colleagues, but a lot of people aren't then going out afterwards with friends because you're all in that one area. And as people aren't traveling, shall we say, to that one area, they're kind of not going out so much. Good for the purse, but maybe not so much for, shall we say, the social aspects of life. But equally as well, and I think you've just touched upon it about the having to schedule time, it's kind of now everyone's getting a bit virtual fatigued, and like they're so scheduled, there's no time in the day. And people now are kind of starting to do calls a bit early or a bit late because it's, well, you're working from home, so you can do it.
So that schedule creep, it starts to creep earlier, creep later. There's less of that hard stop, that boundary, which affords maybe work-life balance. That's interesting. That's very interesting. We got people tuning in here. Chris said we actually used Mural for a next gen GM session. Wow, so you're really doing some really interactive things, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was really cool. I am a big fan of Post-its as well. So Mural and Chris's way of working was so up my street. I actually have a load of Post-its on my desk and a bin to put them in when I'm done. I like to think very cute. but also maybe crazy.
I think that line gets blurred for all of us from time to time. A little bit cute, a little bit crazy. That was almost the name of this podcast, actually. That's funny. This is so great. Jack, I don't believe that companies are addressing remote working on a larger scale permanent solution. Most businesses are just trying to get back to financial norm. I've seen that over and over again, Jack. I think you're right. Have you seen that, Holly?
Yeah, I think everyone's just, it's like kind of quick on to the next step before it kind of sinks. And I don't think people know what to do. Like even the announcement about an hour ago, that kind of puts the kibosh in everyone starting to redeploy back to the office because you're working from home again. So I think the problem here is, and this is why it's so unprecedented, no one kind of knows what one day will be, and it keeps going on and on like that. It's not, oh, it's only a week. It's now been like 6 months.
Yeah, it's been 6 months and it could be another 6 months or more.
Yeah.
And we're kind of taking it day by day, week by week, month by month. But I mean, shouldn't we maybe be looking to invest in home offices and start to reconfigure, the way that we do things to be more semi-permanent instead of kind of ad hoc? It feels like it's kind of ad hoc and we're just waiting to be allowed to come back when we probably should be preparing to be in place for a little bit longer. Henry says remote tools can only work so far. We humans are hardwired for direct interaction. If we lose this, we will end up suffering from various degrees of depression. And Henry's in Bordeaux, so you know what's going to happen to Henry. He's just going to fall off the wagon and roll down the hill, and then it's going to be problems.
But I agree with him. I was reading from the Mental Health Foundation, and they said 25% of mental health issues have gone up. Which is huge. Obviously, it's just, shall we say, the UK and one survey, but that's still a significant number.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And actually, I know one of the things that we had talked about kind of leading into the show is actually, mental health and well-being, and that's an area that I, haven't really wrapped my head around, forgive the pun, so tell me a little bit about that. I know that's something that you think about.
Yeah, and I think it really just comes from, because I've been on assignment myself, and once it was handled quite badly and another time it was handled well. But the time that wasn't handled greatly, I often tell people I was like crying and just kind of miserable. I don't think my work quality was that great because I was just quite flat and stuff, and I wasn't really my best. And that was quite awful. And I wasn't with my friends, I wasn't with my family. And if there were just little things that could have been done, it would have made my life a bit easier and probably less crying phone calls back home. And it really noticed that when I went on my second assignment to the same place, ironically, and it was completely different.
Now, was it with the same company or different company?
No, different companies.
Okay, same place, different company, so real kind of apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, and it was completely different. I didn't want to come home. I was absolutely loving it. Was like ringing up and just like really elated and just having such a great time. And yeah, it couldn't have been more chalk and cheese.
What was the difference, do you think?
Support. And it was more that support on assignment and at the beginning. So beginning, everything was taken care of much smoother, and then equally when I was on assignment and I had to do stuff, it was much clearer in terms of what I had to do, and I was kind of helped versus, oh, okay, well, that's not great, is it? It was, oh no, here you go, you can do this and this will help you, versus just kind of a, dare I say, a nonchalant attitude.
Yeah, makes sense. So as a mobility leader, and as a thought leader, what is your advice then, from your own personal experiences as well as the context of actually having worked in this, industry? I mean, what is your advice to global mobility leaders that are managing programs, managing assignments, to ensure that doesn't happen?
If you have that annoying assignee and you just think, oh my gosh, when will they go home? Maybe just sit down with them, have a coffee if possible, and actually just kind of get them to list what's up, because you're probably going to find something that potentially you can improve, not just for them, but for everyone. Now, some people you will never please, and I often tell people about a man who complained to me about my team and told me how unprofessional they were. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have they done? And he was like, well, TfL's closed at the weekends, and TfL is Transport for London. And I was like, right, but we don't control Transport for London. And they were like, well, it's unacceptable that there's closures. And there's a difference between someone maybe being a bit, dare I say, difficult, to someone going, oh my gosh, I can't find a house within budget and it has the right amount of bedrooms for my wife and children. So I think always listen to someone, because it's quite easy to pick out what someone being silly and what someone actually maybe having a bit of a crisis, which could then evolve into something much bigger.
Interesting. So let me ask you this, around misconceptions in mobility, right? Because it sounds like with that assignee, there were some misconceptions on a micro level. What are some of the biggest misconceptions, either on a micro level or on a macro level, about global mobility, would you say?
Well, for a long while, everyone thought I booked flights. So that was a really big misconception. So I was like, no, I don't book flights.
Were you in the travel department at the time, or was there just total leap of faith?
Totally just misconception that all I did each day was just kind of go on Skyscanner and look for a flight. And I was like,
wow.
Yep, that's all you need to do to move someone. Get a flight. So there's that, but equally as well, I think there's the business really don't sometimes have a clue, and sometimes that's our fault because we don't educate them enough. But equally, I can always remember one chap, we kept telling him stuff, and he just ignored us so much, because it was just so much better not to listen to us than actually listen to us. And we kept telling him, right, it's going to take us about 5 months to get that visa. And we kept telling him. We even did a workflow for him of like the timelines. And then he would still, 6 weeks before the person needed to be there, go, I need someone there in 6 weeks. And we were like, dude, seriously?
So he was with the business. He was he was the business that was requesting the talent. Yes. And okay, yeah. So you've described issues with the talent, with the assignees, and you described issues with the business not being receptive or understanding to the processes. What is your advice for global mobility managers who find themselves in that situation? And I think I've heard story after story after story of folks who are working in a global mobility capacity within a corporation, or maybe even suppliers who are supporting a corporation, and they're saying things just can't be done, or they're stating policies that are set outside of their control, and people just aren't being receptive. I mean, what advice do you give to folks who might be watching?
I think some things can't be done, and that will be because you're breaking the law, basically. So fair enough. But if you're not, shall we say, going to break the law, I always think you should try and see if it can be done. And it's much better story to the business that you've really tried versus just going, no. And that then kind of really creates that global mobility versus the business, shall we say. Mm-hmm. So my recommendation is always look at something fairly and see if it can be done, unless it breaks the law, obviously, and versus then just saying, no, it's out of policy. Because while it may be out of policy, if you say, well, okay, it's out of policy, but if you pay $10,000 more, you can do it, that actually may quash it there and then, because the business may not want to pay that.
It is nice when you give people options, right? You give someone an option, say it can be done for a price is X. And they say, well, okay, well, no, we can wait. It's not like I haven't tried. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
I love doing that, particularly with local moves. So what I used to do because we had a load of local moves, particularly people from, shall we say, like high cost locations like the UK, US, and they would move to lower cost locations, but they would think they could keep their, shall we say, their salary from, shall we say, the US to India, and they would think they would still get a US salary. And we're like, well, no, you need to have an Indian salary. And as soon as you said that, people would be like, no, sorry, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because now it's not always that way though, right? Some companies allow them to keep their US salary and go over there and live like, at the Taj Mahal or something?
They do sometimes, but then I've dealt with a lot of people, shall we say, requesting this themselves. There's no business motivation. So the easiest way from a compliance perspective is just to kind of put them on a local contract, and therefore you have to kind of make them palatable to everyone else, really.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And that's where the issues arise.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because people, like you said, want to live in the Taj Mahal, basically.
So I want to talk about how global mobility can be more quote unquote business minded. But before, I want to just visit with some of these comments here, because I think they're spectacular. We got such a great community here, and they're hopping in. They love you, Holly. Simon Johns said, Holly, the first meeting we had in London and the massive Costa coffee you had with everything in it, we hit it off. You are a warm, friendly people person who doesn't suffer fools gladly. Hats off to you. Go, Holly.
Yeah, it was at Christmas time, I'd like to add, and I really like gingerbread lattes.
Mm-hmm.
And it had cream and everything.
That's great.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's see here. Henri says, talking about, his mental health, I'm going to get smashed with Bordeaux wine. That's what's going to happen. If I'm going happy. God bless Henri. Let's see here. Victoria, I think companies are really struggling. The EU is undergoing a second wave of COVID, and the US is yet to get a handle on it to get past the first wave. Yeah, interesting. Henri, very true. We've yet to call anything post-COVID at this rate. Henri, sympathizing. Most prospective customers think I represent a travel agency. That's funny. That is so funny. People are checking out Mural right now. People are applauding Jack's article. Go ahead, Holly.
No, I was just wondering if Chris will cut us in on his commission.
Yeah. Can we get a commission on the commission? Maybe. That's great. Wonderful. Olivia Bakrami says, thoroughly enjoying this conversation today. It seems like when things are improving, Corona throws a new challenge at us. Although uncomfortable, us humans have an incredible way of adapting and innovating, and I think that's what we will see in the future. Interesting. What do you think about that, Holly?
I agree and I disagree. So I agree because I think we're awesome and innovative, and you can see that just by how global mobility has changed. But at the same time, people don't like change. So I think people will try and go back to normal as quickly as they possibly can.
We're good at change, we just don't like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's like me painting my house. I'm good at it, I just don't like it. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Let's see here. People are tuning in. Lisa Baranich, shout out from Boulder, Colorado. Thanks for sharing great content. Holly has the best laugh. That's lovely. People are so kind on this platform. I tell you what, seriously, I might be having a bad day. I come on here. Everybody's so kind and warm. So let's go back to what we were talking about as far as global mobility, having more of a quote business mindset. what can global mobility do to improve on, say, their business mindset and maybe come closer to the business and in that regard?
I think it's really having something to offer the business that isn't, shall we say, just doing what Glow Mobility is there for. And that's not booking flights, but it's getting that person from A to B. And when I say A to B, it's not just to the location, but it's also back from the location. And I think sometimes we think if we do that, well, we're done. But that's like saying to finance, oh, well, you've done your bookkeeping, so you're now awesome and you've got the position that you have. So I think what we need to do is kind of look at where not just Glow Mobility, but generally companies are going and work out how Glow Mobility can kind of get there at the forefront, shall we say. Like I often say, like cultural and diversity, inclusion, we're actually quite knowledgeable on that because of all the different nationalities and countries that we deal with. Kind of put that more at the forefront, get involved with diversity inclusion, and just kind of, I think, maybe step out of that Glow Mobility box a little. And I think we can kind of prove our worth, because I do believe Glow Mobility professionals know a lot more than they think.
I think that's a really excellent point, right? I mean, when you take a look at the skill sets that we actually possess and the knowledge bases that we have access to, because one of the things that makes global mobility such a difficult, business to get a handle on, which is probably one of the reasons why there is a next gen GM, is because it touches so many different areas. I mean, immigration, tax, transportation and logistics, real estate, finance. I mean, just so many things.
Don't forget booking a flight, Ben.
And booking flights, which are so much harder than people realize. No, but I mean, no, yes, and hotel stays. I mean, goodness gracious, furnished accommodations. I mean, but I think, but when you look at it from what strengths do we possess from a strength finder type of an approach, I think you're right. I think we bring a lot more to the table than sometimes we give ourselves credit for. So how can global mobility professionals articulate those skill sets and translate those to other parts of the business? What do they need to do?
Be annoying and just kind of just go and annoy that person. Like I've gone and annoyed like the culture diversity people and said, I'll come help you. What do you want? And at my last company, we started a project looking at giving everyone cultural training because we're an international company. So we were all working with different people internationally.
I love that. Be annoying. I love that. Be annoying. I'm so annoying. I mean, in fact, I send people push notifications every day when I feel like having a conversation. That's how annoying I am. Okay, but why is it so hard for people to be annoying?
I think we sometimes get stuck in our Glow Mobility box, and we equally sometimes get a bit stuck on trends as well in the marketplace. And I think forget the marketplace, focus on your company. It's great that company A may be doing something and it may look awesome, and I often describe this with technology, as much as I love it, if no one else in HR really has technology for their onboarding, why would Glow Mobility? Because you touch maybe 1-2% of the employee population. If, shall we say, the onboarding team who touches everyone doesn't, well, so that's why I think don't necessarily focus what might be trendy in Glow Mobility. Focus on what your company is saying. Read the really long company annual report. Like look at the finances, even look at what the CEO is saying, the like CTO if you work in tech, everyone like that. And I think that will be where you kind of understand what Glow Mobility can bring.
I think that's so interesting, right? Because there is a lot of trendiness right now in global mobility. A lot of it's around digitalization, right? And offering employees a digitized customer experience. And I think that you're right. I mean, why would global mobility necessarily endeavor to be at the cutting edge of technology and ahead of some of the other HR business practices when they only service, to your point, 1% of the population, it doesn't necessarily make sense. And it almost would seem like if you invested in technology in that aspect and built processes that are kind of, highly engineered and prescriptive in the global mobility space, it might actually be hard later when broader HR decides that, okay, it's time to digitize HR and go through a major transformation. And yet we've over-engineered the global mobility process. It might actually, and I'm just kind of thinking as I talk here, which is dangerous.
I agree.
But it might actually pose a problem later in unwinding some of those processes.
Definitely, because what if the APIs don't work, and then you've got things that aren't talking to each other, and global mobility has a system which just doesn't work with anything else, and you're kind of stuck because it's not easy to reverse that.
Yeah, I mean, you might be faced having to go and get a different supplier, or other things. I think that's really interesting. So while we're on this topic, and here comes Jack. I always got to cede the floor to the distinguished gentleman from New Jersey. Jack Jampel well said, focus on what your company is saying and your culture, not what the mobility industry continues to push as trends. Yeah, I mean, that's also kind of in a way part of that being annoying, right? It's like,
Yeah.
It's like not being afraid to be a little annoying and say, you know what, I'm not going to buy the latest, greatest trend because it doesn't actually work. And I mean,
Yeah.
Jack's the best at that. He is, though. I mean, he's the first one to say the emperor's not wearing any clothes on this issue or that issue. He'll be the first one to say, I know you're saying, this is Jack, I know you're saying this, Ben, but you know that when you look at it, and it's like, all right, Jack, I mean, okay, you got me. You're right, and it's like, and that's why I love Jack. I mean, that's why he's so special. But I think it's hard though sometimes to, and I guess let me ask you, the personality profile of the global mobility manager, the personality profile of the HR business partner, right? Culturally within that job, I wonder sometimes if it's just part of the, if it's a cultural opportunity to say you can be annoying, you can be contrarian, you can think differently, you can be innovative, you can be entrepreneurial. These aren't always skill sets or personality traits that we associate with the global mobility manager. True or false? I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think sometimes we are a little afraid of our own shadow, so to speak, and actually being bold and saying, you know what, we're not going to have that. We're not going to do this. Okay, we may be the only ones, but if it's right for your company, that's who you're trying to please. You're not trying to please the industry.
Yeah, I love that. So I just want to stick on this topic of digitization and automation, and these are buzzwords, right? And things that are going around right now. What are your thoughts on digitization and automation within global mobility?
Love it. I think it's great, but it, like I've kind of been saying, it has to be right for the company. So I'm a huge fan of automation and streamlining. I think it cuts waste in terms of people doing repetitive admin, and it potentially can also, shall we say, optimize spending, because whereas you may need to spend a lot of money on different advisory services, you may have then this technical tool, particularly like the business visitor tools, where they kind of analyze tax, immigration, etc., which kind of cuts that cost down. But then, yeah, again, it's got to fit in with the company. You've got to have, shall we say, the right numbers and really make it worthwhile. If you've got, shall we say, 100 business trips a year, it's probably not even worth doing. But if you've got like 80,000, then probably worth doing.
So you talk about optimization or cost optimization. I think that's what you said, cost optimization.
Yes.
Tell me what that means.
So I'm kind of the school of thought that you don't get anything for nothing. So if you're going for something, shall we say you want some technology, and it's going to cost you 500,000, you build a business case and you justify how you won't just get that 500,000 back, you'll actually save maybe 3 million through this piece of technology. And the reason I say cost optimization and not cost savings, because you are spending, but you're spending to optimize your cost.
I love this. I love this because you can spend more and save a lot. And I think that this is where we've been as an industry, is going towards cost cutting. But the costs show up in other places.
Yes.
So I might take it out of the headcount bucket, but then I put it into the services bucket at 2x or 3x. So what have I saved? And I never understood, and this is my limitation and probably from an experiential standpoint, but I never understood why companies don't understand that, why they're always so keen to save in the headcount and the overhead and the FTEs, but they don't really look at the increase in cost over in the services bucket. You've been closer to these problems before. So why do you think there is that disconnect?
I think it's, yet again, that business mindset, because this is kind of very much, shall we say, thinking a bit out of the box. And instead of saying, you know what, okay, you're not going to give me any money, fair enough, but how about you give a little bit of an investment, and then through that investment, I'm actually going to generate this for you in return. A bit kind of, we have Dragon's Den, I think you guys have Shark Tank. But a bit kind of like going in that boardroom situation and just kind of saying, look, you invest in me, I will get you this. And that's always way more palatable for a business lead, your C-suite, than just going, can you give me 500,000, please? And
yeah, I mean, being able to show what you're getting for that money, I think, and the fact that the more you spend, the more you save. I mean, if you can engineer scenarios where, and I know that insourcing things are not really it's not the flavor of the month currently. But I mean, I could see scenarios where, you spend more money on headcount to bring relocation consultants on the team, and other capabilities on the team, and you could save a lot potentially in fees. But that doesn't seem to be the flavor of the month and the trend that we're seeing, Holly. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's because some things, I'll be honest, people just don't want to touch. Like, no one's ever going to want to do a tax return in-house. Like, I started as a US UK expat tax preparer, and before we signed off a tax return, I prepared it, someone reviewed it, then someone else reviewed it, and that process was not quick, and it required like 3 people, sometimes 4 people, dependent on the complexity. Now, if you're trying to do that in-house, that's already 4 headcounts. Now, that's quite a lot, and that, shall we say, just one country, because no one's going to be an expert in probably more than 1 or 2 different countries. So
Sure.
You then soon get this really large headcount.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you would still use a tax firm for something like that, due to what you're saying, right? Because you're touching different countries, and maybe you have a couple tax returns from a bunch of countries, and that makes a lot of sense. I think you would still use a provider for that, but managing those providers, I think, could be done potentially in-house. We got some interesting comments coming in. Alan King saying, great points. Love this discussion. Sandra Clary, the give to get principle. I think it can be, I think it can be presented that way. We have people checking in from Mumbai, which is so rare for us. It's great to see folks from Mumbai. Welcome. We might actually have one of our first guests from India or Sri Lanka coming up soon. So very excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, right. Des McKell, is it time to rename our industry strategic talent mobility? Other ideas? If you were the fairy godmother of global mobility, what would you rename our industry?
Oh, I'm not very good at naming things.
Well, Next Gen GM is pretty cool.
I didn't come up with it though.
That's why it's a co-founder, right? That's like,
It would be glow mobility for people in the infancy of their career who are starting out, something like that.
GMFTIC doesn't have the
No,
same ring to it, does it? That's great.
it would be so convoluted.
Well, it could spell a big word, is what it would be. It'd be an acronym that
Exactly.
spelled a very big word. Jay Jampel says it's a financial shell game. It depends on where you are trying to save. Yeah, I think looking at it net, trying to save obviously from the bottom line, I think is the best place to look. You could definitely swap costs from different line items, but
Yeah.
I think once the bottom line improves, I think bottom line and then obviously employee experience are the two areas, right? You want to improve. We're this has been a great conversation, and we're kind of running almost out of time. We got about 5 more minutes. If you have any more questions or comments, love to run them by Holly as well. We've had some great interaction here. This is fantastic. You're a comic book fan, though, aren't you,
Yeah.
Holly? Yeah, we do some prep. People that haven't been on the show don't know this, but we do some prep and we have some conversations. And one of the things that kind of came up was Holly's a comic book fan. How do you imagine, if you were to imagine, global mobility people as comic book superheroes, what would that look like?
Oh, we're Black Widow because we are amazing at everything, like hands down.
Yeah. And give us for those of us who don't know Black Widow or don't know the character, give us some backstory there.
Well, basically, she doesn't have any innate superpowers. She's just a normal person, but she's worked really hard and basically gained all these different skills to make her like an awesome fighter.
I love that idea because I think there's this idea of innate talent. Like we're born with a talent for things, right? And people think that you're a born speaker, or you're born funny, or you're born with a gift of gab, or math, or things like that. But I mean, it's not true. We work towards these things, right? Just like nobody was born as a global mobility specialist. They work towards these skills, right? And then by going to things like Next Gen GM and participating in communities and doing things like Love and Relo and reading and practicing these things. So I think that's really, really great. What advice would you give to people that are starting out in this industry like Black Widow with no skills? Okay. And just maybe no skills, but a desire to succeed. What are some of the pieces of advice or career planning tips you might give people? Maybe give me 3 tips you might give someone starting out in this industry.
Write down what you want to achieve. So have a big overarching goal. And I think that's applicable for everyone, basically. Learn everything you can. And when I say learn everything you can, don't just kind of read articles and stuff, but when you're actually working in a company, volunteer for maybe the different projects. Don't sit on the sidelines. And
I love that. I want to stay there just for a second, okay? Because what you're describing there is learning as an activity. It's not a passive thing where I'm reading a book. What you're saying is raise your hand and volunteer. So I think that some people think that volunteering and learning aren't the same thing. Why would they be wrong?
well, I always say to people so at my last company, I was at DXE and I was originally part of an acquired company. And so I was acquired. I was kind of the person by themselves, so to speak. And they said about these projects and I just kept raising my hand going, yes, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. Made me very busy for a couple of months. But it then kind of integrated me with the team and kind of showed them what I could do. And also kind of made me actually build a rapport as well with my colleagues, which if I just kind of sat on the sidelines, I would not have had.
That makes a lot of sense. I've learned so much by volunteering. I mean, volunteering is such a shortcut in life. I tell you what, it really is. I love that you did that. So those are the first 2 things. What is what's maybe the third thing there?
Be a nice person to work with. And I know that's a really kind of lame thing to say. Everyone has a bad day. No one's going to be unforgiving of that, but be that person that people actually want to be around. So people actually go, yeah, I want to work with that person, versus, oh my God, not another meeting with them.
I love it. That's fantastic advice. Fantastic advice. Holly, this has been a really fantastic conversation. I've really,
Thank you,
truly
Ben.
enjoyed this. I wish you so much success with Next Gen GM. It sounds like you're really touching a lot of people, and you're really adding a lot of joy and a lot of value to a lot of people. And we have a lot of friends in common, so that means a lot to me as well. Holly, would you like to leave us with one thought as we depart here?
Yeah, I just think everyone, like, things may be a bit hard and a bit maybe negative at the moment, but there are lots of positives at present. And I think stuff like Love and Relo is one of them. It's nice to just hear positive, uplifting, glow mobility stories. And I think what this has all shown is that we're actually a really great industry and community who really band together.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty cool. Great people in this business. Holly Creed, director and co-founder, Next Gen GM. Thank you so much for being with us today and taking all these questions and having this fantastic conversation. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks so much. And hey, everybody, tune in for the rest of the week. We've got some fantastic people coming to us, so I can't wait. We got the ladies from Porchlight who are going to be here talking about renters. We've got Fiona from Expat Partners coming in on Thursday. We've got another Move for Hunger, Hunger Action Week final episode with our CAN Corporate Action Network Committee. They're going to be here speaking to us as well with my co-host Tanya Maritini. So can't wait to bring all that to you. Thank you so much for all of you that got involved. This is all about you. This is a interactive discussion, and without you, it just wouldn't be the same. So thank you so much for everybody who raised their hand and got involved. Hit that like button. I see everybody kind of going off here with the likes and everything. So thank you so much. It means the world.